I'm Mark Small. This is Civil Discourse Now for October 5th, 2022. Um, how many guns are too many for individuals? I mean, we've got an individual right to have firearms, supposedly in the Second Amendment, although it was never construed that way until big money went behind trying to get it interpreted that way. Chief Justice Warren Burger said that was a big con game, that the Second Amendment never was meant for an individual right to bear arms and firearms and stuff. And let's just stop for a moment and let's just say, okay, fine. How many is too many? Think about it. If you've got too many guns in a household that a person can't keep track of, that's getting a little bit out of hand. What about 1,000 guns in a pickup truck going down the road and they're falling all over the place? There are some people who say, I want it, they're morons too. But what's too many? If you've got a reason to have a firearm, if you're a professional hunter, imagine you have several firearms, not several hundred. I saw a photograph of a person with like 60 or 70, he was a minister, a white Christian minister, had 60 or 70 firearms spread out on the concrete outside garage, where he lived. And they're like assault style weapons, handguns, all sorts of stuff there. Who needs that many firearms? Oh, somebody who's wanting to wage war. Now, I'm a pacifist. I don't own a firearm. Never have owned a firearm. Don't want to own a firearm. So I'm not one of the people posing a threat. People who are posing a threat are the people who are buying up the guns. And they're the ones who are wanting to hurt people with them. But let's get that aside for a moment. How many is too many for one person? Well, they're getting 20 or 30 guns. How can they keep track of them? Somebody not stealing them. What about handguns? We got 20 or 30 handguns. How many can you use? I think that one thing that we can approach as far as rational gun control in the state of Indiana is putting a limit on the number of firearms, if nothing else an individual can own. I don't own any. I get along fine. How many handguns does a person need? One for the car. Whoops, don't leave it in the car because somebody could steal it. One in the living room, one in the bedroom, one in the kitchen, up on top of the refrigerator, one in the restroom. How many? Do you need more than one gun per room? Because if you look at someone who's serious about wanting to have handguns, they're going to be serious about also being very careful about them when one confer. So I think that we need to look at limiting the number of firearms an individual can own. I think we also, since we have licensing and requirement of training for driving cars, we should do the same for firearms so that we know if somebody's going to be using firearms, they're going to know how to use them and keep them safe and not blow people's heads off unintentionally, let's say. The last thing, I keep coming back to this, we need to have peer-reviewed studies to determine whether, on balance, firearms in the home prevent more crime than they cause. Because the NRA and the gun manufacturers stopped and the Russians, don't forget the Russians, they contribute to the NRA. They stopped those studies in the mid-90s for a reason. They didn't want the truth coming out, maybe, but it would be a good thing for some people to know that a firearm in the home, poses more of a risk to them and their loved ones than it poses for like a prevention or kind of a safety mechanism. Remember, if you can't use a gun, it doesn't really act as a deterrent to anyone. So if you're not home, for example, and your gun is at home, it's not going to be a deterrent. In fact, might attract people who will want to steal it. So I'm running for Indiana House District 86. I think that I have specific ideas for firearms. One is to have studies so we can know whether they are more effective or harmful. That would be one thing to know. I think we should put a limit on the total number of firearms that a person can own. I happen to have some concrete proposals there for gun violence. My opponent, I don't think that I've read any that Representative Delaney any proposals that he's had lately on firearms. I know a few years ago he said he was giving up on it. I can't. I don't think that that's something we should do. I know he was disgusted with it, and I don't blame him. But if he's reached a point of disgust in dealing with firearms, then maybe that's something that he shouldn't be too worried about anymore. I mean, that's something that we need to have safety, and safety is really impaired by firearms. I'm Mark Small for Indiana House District 86. I'm pro-choice, pro-environment, anti-gun, anti-Trump, anti-MAGA Republican candidate in District 86. Peace, love, happiness.